Everyone hold fast. This dragon's all that's left. Forward!
My defense buff won't take effect in time! Hurry with the heals!
Lyos!
Ugh! Run! Lyos! You're awake? It seems we got out of the dungeon thanks to a teleport spell, but there's no sign of Fallon anywhere.
She was eaten.
Huh?
Let's go save her right away.
Wait a moment. The truth is, most of our belongings are still in the dungeon, which means we're essentially penniless.
We need to go back into the dungeon right now.
I'm definitely coming too. I care about Fallon just as much as you do. Don't you dare say I'd get in the way. You know full well how strong my magic is.
Don't forget about me here. You're not gonna tell me you don't need someone to get past those locked doors and traps, are you?
You two. You two are sure you want to come with me, right? No matter what it takes to do so.
Yes? No! Absolutely not!
Didn't you say you'd do anything to save Fallon?
That didn't include eating monsters! This is, though heavily truncated, how Dungeon Meshi, or Delicious in Dungeon as it's known in the West, starts. In a nutshell, it follows the adventures of Lyos, a seasoned adventurer who, with the help of some friends, must venture down into a dungeon ruled by an insane mage to rescue his sister. The twist? The party loses everything down below, and so must subsist by eating the denizens of the dungeon itself. I love this manga. It is adorable. And fun as fuck, until suddenly about halfway through some legitimate world building starts to occur and the story gets a little more serious, but still always fun until you're here going, holy shit, I am at the edge of my goddamn seat right now. I will not be talking about any of that today, because frankly, I want you to read it yourself. I'll only be spoiling up through the first volume. It's available in ebook form for like $6 each, or I don't know, just get good like me and work at a comic shop. Losers. However, I want to get as close to doing a review as I ever will and talk about what makes this series so fun and why you should read it. It's also just a blatant excuse to voice act some of the scenes because Marcelle is my spirit animal. You might recognize her as the origin of my profile picture. She's been hiding there all along, waiting. Delicious in Dungeon is a manga written and illustrated by mangaka Ryoko Kui and began publication in Harda magazine in February of 2014. Harda is a pretty small affair, but it is known for series like Hinamatsuri and Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto. Dungeon didn't see an English translation until Yen Press licensed and released the first volume in 2017, so for us in the West, it's still pretty new. There has so far been no anime adaptation announced, though I'm sure with its current popularity, it's only a matter of time. I'm secretly hoping it'll be done by Studio Trigger of Kill la Kill fame, as they produced an animated commercial for the 8th volume upon release. An anime by Trigger would be a match made in heaven, because Dungeon is nothing short of an energetic romp through a very carefully designed world. For the first half of its run, we simply follow our four main characters, Lyos, Marcille, Chilchuck, and Senshi, as they venture deeper and deeper into the titular dungeon, and seeing what sort of food they'll make next. A lot of the joy of reading the series comes from figuring out all of the insane things they use to make normal food. For instance, in the first volume alone, they make hot pot out of giant scorpions, tarts out of slimes, and man-eating plant fruit, and casserole out of living armor. Don't question that last one.
So that's it! There was some kind of soft-bodied monster inside. And now it stopped moving. That explains why cutting the armor to pieces didn't do anything. It was already made up of a colony of these.
Whoa!
What happened here?
I knew there was a mage! Where's the mage?
There is no mage. The living armors aren't being controlled. They're alive. This is what living armors are really made of. These creatures link bodies inside the armor. Each of them is positioned to work like different muscles. Individually, they're weak, simple creatures. But if they use the armor as a frame and split the workload, then they can move like a human.
Which illustrates my favorite aspect of the story, how well thought out every element of the world is. It starts small, of course, with how to hunt and catch particular creatures to how their parts would cook and function as a meal. Each creature's anatomy is highly detailed and interesting, like the living armor example from above. It's a really unique and interesting way to explore a fantasy world that I haven't really seen done before. Eventually, of course, this level of detail will expand to the dungeon, and by extension, the world itself. Eventually, we will begin to learn how the dungeon was constructed and maintained, and develop an understanding of how the world outside the dungeon works, and what a world whose surface is littered with pits into hell would look like. I keep turning pages, staying up way too late at night, not just because of the exciting adventures and good characters that I care about, but because it scratches that particular itch of wanting to know more. I want to be immersed in this world and understand all of its little intricacies. Delicious in Dungeon might not be for everyone, sure. It's a little slow-paced and relatively low on action for a story that's set within a fantasy dungeon. The characters are more concerned with surviving than with becoming stronger or kicking ass, and they always attempt peaceful solutions when possible. But it's a series designed to pique your sense of curiosity. It keeps tickling you with little snippets of information, and you just want to keep reading to find out what it all means and how it clicks together. Your understanding of the world expands as the scope of the story expands, and suddenly, you start to realize that there's a lot more to this tale than you initially thought. But none of these are my absolute favorite aspects of Delicious in Dungeon. A lot of things I've been saying still apply, the thoughtfulness of the construction and presentation, etc. But simply put, I love the main cast of the story. They all work together so nicely, yet at the same time have perfectly contrasting personalities. Even though most of the characters already know each other before the story starts, you can still see them come together and grow as a team. They bicker and argue constantly, but deep down you can tell that they care about each other more than anything. I can't talk about much plot-wise because then you wouldn't go out and buy it yourself, but the characters are something I can talk about. And we're going to start with the king of the hour when it comes to talking, our main character, Lyos.
I'm pretty sure by now, but I might as well ask. You've actually been waiting for a chance to eat monsters for a long time, haven't you?
I've kept quiet about it, but I love monsters. Their bodies, their voices. I want to find out more about how they live. Over time, I started wanting to know what they taste like, too.
He's a psychopath.
Lyos is a very interesting main character, and honestly one that's perfect for this series. He shares a lot of the same traits of your typical shonen protagonist. He's straightforward and honest, loyal to a default, and can be a serious leader when he needs to be. But also, he is one of the most himbo-ish manga protags I've seen in a while, to the point where sometimes his teammates have to point out the obvious to him. A lot of this comes from tunnel vision that he acquires when it comes to monsters. Lyos loves monsters, and his second motivation besides saving his sister is that he wants to learn as much as he can about them, which of course includes eating them to see what they taste like. This comes in handy a lot for our main cast, as his already existing knowledge about monsters and how they work has gotten the group out of a lot of encounters that they might not have otherwise won. Main characters and their personalities often help a reader determine how they should view the world the story takes place in, and what their mindset should be. That's why a lot of shonen protagonists are happy-go-lucky and love their friends more than anything, because shonen series often have a straightforward morality and tone and want you to love all of their characters. This is also why harem protagonists are often confessed perverts, because it's supposed to make the audience feel better about lusting after the female cast. The same holds true for Lyos, but maybe in a slightly more subtle way than the previous examples. Simply put, you as a reader are supposed to latch onto Lyos' curiosity. So much of the drive and intrigue of this series comes from wanting to know more about the world and the dungeon, and information is drip-fed to you in a masterful manner. Lyos wanting to know more tunes the reader into the fact that this is going to be a series about finding out more. Essentially, he's the perfect main character for this series, and not only holds the whole cast together, but also you as the reader. He's got you in his grasp now, kiddos, and he's never letting go!
Let's put this in.
Stop right there! Absolutely not! Okay, say I can stomach monsters, but I will not eat plants growing in here! I am wholly against it for religious reasons! Do we really need more? Scorpion and mushroom alone look tasty enough as they are, don't they? Let's just eat those!
Marcille is what we in the business refer to as a stick in the mud. She's a very by-the-books elven mage who stands out a little among the adventuring crowd, given her formal magic education and frail constitution. But she has her own reasons for being down in the dungeon, things she needs to find out and discover. Alright, I've made her sound all mysterious and stuff now, haven't I? Truth be told, in the first couple volumes, Marcelle acts as the primary comic relief character. Everybody else is fine with eating monsters, and Lyos is even fascinated with the process, but Marcelle is the one who hesitates the most. She eventually comes around, and this character trait does not stick forever, turning from wild screaming every time they want to eat something new to post-traumatic grumbling, which is good. It gives us a nice groundwork, reminding us frequently that this is not how adventurers usually do things, and she also acts as a nice fulcrum to Senshi, whom we'll meet in a minute. Marcelle freaking out about eating something weird is funny for about 3 times, 4 max, but if she had continued in such a manner for much longer, it would have gotten annoying quickly. That being said, even if she becomes alright with eating monsters, Marcelle is always the one to point out when something is weird or silly, and though she never really digs in her heels about it, she's the one who is always complaining. And it really works. In a story where all of the characters are super gung-ho about trying weird things or finding bizarre solutions, her utter inability to stop being dramatic about it is really, really funny. I won't spoil too much, but Marcelle is the prime example of the crouching moron, hidden badass trope. She comes off as silly and airheaded, but she's really a very powerful mage, in addition to knowing other things. It's kind of rare that a female character fills this role in a story. Not unheard of course, but less common than I'd like. I only point it out because I love these characters and I wish I could voice more of them, and Marcelle scratches that itch perfectly for me.
Here we go.
Ooh!
What just happened?
Chilchuck is a pro at finding traps and picking locks. Halflings have highly honed senses. He probably used the sound of the echo to figure out the layout of the walls.
Just so we're clear, the path ahead is chock full of traps. The thing I hate the most is being interfered with when I work.
Chilchuck is a bit weird to talk about because he's a pretty big outlier in a lot of ways. He doesn't really have a lot to do with the main plot and kind of just hangs around with the rest of the group. Each of the other group members kind of specialize in a specific kind of knowledge. With Lyos it's monsters, with Marcelle it's magic, and with Senshi it's cooking. Chilchuck knows an exceptional amount about traps, but compared to the others, this only comes in handy in specific situations. Still, I'd argue that Chilchuck is an essential character to the story, as he not only provides context for an entirely different side of the world that we would not get to see otherwise, but also for his role in the party dynamics. Chilchuck looks like a child. Chilchuck is not a child. In fact, he's about the equivalent of a 50-year-old man. When people call him a child, he gets really pissed off about it. And it's funny. Every time. Chilchuck is a half-foot, a rather short-lived race of people who are also rather short. In reality, he's only about 29 years old, which still makes him legal by human standards. The rest of the party is rather squeaky clean and noble. Lyos is the bestest of boys. Marcelle would probably panic if she was involved in many shady things, and Senshi is just doing his own thing. Chilchuck is kind of the story's representative for the shadier side of the world building. He himself doesn't truck with crime as he thinks it gives his race a bad rep, but he's still a locksmith and trap maker, so he can't help but be involved with that kind of thing on a superficial level, even if he spends a lot of time in direct opposition to it. Not only that, but he also possesses a more pragmatic personality than the rest of the cast. The others may have their morals and high ideals, but sometimes it takes Chilchuck to call out their bullshit and bring them back down to reality. Chilchuck is the realist of the group. A lot of the other party members have sort of big personalities that might conflict with each other or might just make them float away on their own, so Chilchuck is kind of the one that keeps the party together. He's the perfect example of a character that doesn't look super important on the surface, but the story would ultimately suffer a lot if he wasn't there.
I have been researching monster cuisine in this dungeon for more than 10 years. There is no greater joy for me than to help others learn the joy of monster food.
10 years?
Just give me a bit of time. It will be ready very soon. Here it is.
Senshi is the latecomer to the main cast, only appearing towards the tail end of Chapter 1, but he's the one that makes the whole plot work. While Lyos knows a lot about monsters, he's a novice when it comes to cooking them. Senshi has been surviving in the dungeon for the last 10 years, or so he says. He's a gruff and somewhat quiet dwarf, older and wiser than the rest of the party, so he sort of becomes the group dad. Senshi is a good contrast to the rest of the party. Lyos and Marcille are somewhat loud and boisterous, and Chilchuck is sometimes seething and acerbic, so Senshi brings a nice sort of calm to the series. While the other characters are flailing around, it's Senshi who says, "Sit your asses down, I'm gonna make a nice meal and we're all going to eat together." It's nice once a chapter to take a break from the character comedy and occasional action scenes just to watch this man's cook. He's also the character largely responsible for the ethos of the manga, because while Lyos and his party are surviving off of eating monsters, Senshi claims that he is part of the dungeon's ecosystem, that he only takes what he needs and tries to give back when he can. He's responsible for nurturing the dungeon just as much as he is taking from it. Later on in the series, the ultimate goal shifts from being antagonistic with the creatures in the dungeon to preserving them and somewhat protecting them. At first, the monsters seem scary and terrifying, but most of them are just surviving, just as the party are, and through Senshi's respect and love for this place, we start to see the beauty in the monsters themselves. It's not a strong environmental message, but those elements are certainly there. And in a genre where the monsters are either inconsequential enemies or at worst evil adversaries, it's refreshing to see a story step away from that ethos, and Senshi is largely responsible. Through his patience and serenity, he not only guides the reader's perception of this world, but also that of the characters that surround him.
Do you always come out here?
Yep. Grasshopper! Look! Raspberries!
Don't just grab random things out of the woods and don't eat them either! What if they're poisonous?
They aren't random things. Grasshoppers and raspberries aren't poisonous.
Fallon isn't technically part of the main cast, but she's just as important to the story. Mostly as a plot device, of course. A lot of the story is spent trying to track down the red dragon that ate her, but as a character, she's much more than your typical damsel in distress. The story doesn't accomplish this by making her some sort of badass who tries to escape on her own or anything like that, but it does something even better. It makes her a character that we care about, even without having really met her in person. Her character design does a lot of work here initially. She certainly does not look like your average little sister character. She's considerably more unique than that. A lot of little sister characters are focused on being loud and annoying, and their character designs reflect that, but Fallon is sort of rounded and pleasant. You can immediately get a sense for who she is just by how she looks. Lyos and the others who knew her talk about her frequently, and it's only good things, of course, because Fallon is a sunflower marshmallow and they miss her, etc. But there's an undercurrent that she was a person. Another member of the party fell in love with her, and it wasn't her brother, thank fucking God. She never turned down his advances, even if she didn't feel the same way, and at one point it almost threatened to tear the party apart. From what you learn, she comes off as well-meaning, but a little dense. Eventually, we begin to get some small flashbacks featuring Fallon, one with Marcille, whom she went to magic school with, and one with Lyos, and all of our suspicions about her character are confirmed. But all of these things about her lead her to be infinitely likable, and with just this small amount of time spent with her, you really begin to root for the party to save her, because like Senshi, you get this feeling that you'd really like to meet her properly. This is something that so many series fail to do. They focus on the characters that want to save the damsel, or have many other circumstances where the storyteller only focuses on trying to make you care that they care. I talk about this in my Sword Art Online video and why this doesn't work. The goal of the storyteller is to make me care about the goal just as strongly as the characters do, and in this case, Fallon is a fantastic success as both a goal and a character in her own right. Man, what good characters. What a good series. I wish I could have gotten into much more detail about the world and the plotline, but again, if this story sounded even vaguely interesting, or if you snorted air out of your nose once from the scenes that played out, give this manga a shot. This video is very short and kind of a mess, more of a stream of consciousness than anything else, but also it's going to be a bitch and a half to edit, so take it or leave it, I guess. Maybe eventually I'll be able to go over this series in more detail, though I'll probably wait until it inevitably gets an anime so that I have some flashing lights on the screen to entertain you all while I talk. Anyway, one last time, go read this manga, support the mangaka, support the industry, all that good stuff. There's a lot of good manga that comes out every year that a lot of people don't know about because it hasn't gotten an anime yet, so just try this one. It's good, I swear! So until next time, curl in and keep yourself occupied with a good manga, and I'll see you all soon. I hope. Hey everybody, thanks again for watching. It always means a lot to me. to have people watch these videos and enjoy them. So thank you very much. I have a couple of places you can find me. I have another YouTube channel. I have a Discord server. I have a Patreon if you'd like to support me. And I also have a bunch of original writing on that first channel if you want to know my qualifications for judging stories like I do constantly. Links to all of those are in the description below. Thank you so much once again. Sword Art Online Part 2 will be next, I promise. I just wanted to get this out there, especially considering that it was recently leaked that Delicious in Dungeon is getting an anime, probably. No studio announcement yet. Know nothing about that, but I'm sincerely hoping it's Trigger. But I'm very excited, so I figured this was a great time to release this video. So thank you guys once again, and I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.